So for the second part of this week, I'm only going to add one thing to the sequences that we've already been doing. So we're still writing equations. It's still going to be in the form an equals a1 plus d times n minus 1. So that's still the same. The only thing I'm going to add is like another question about the sequence. So here is an example. Let's start with the sequence 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and it keeps going. First, write the equation. So to write the equation of the sequence, I need to know what the first number is, which is 10, and I need to know the pattern. So for this one, you're subtracting 2 each time. So I'm plugging in -2 and -1, and then that is the equation. So what we did this week was, what if I gave you a number to find? So for example, what is the 100th term? That just means that we had to plug in 100 for n and solve. So to find that 100th term, the equation would be 10 minus 2 times 100 minus 1. And you're following PEMDAS to calculate. This would be 10 minus 2 times 99. So that number is -188. So again, that is the 100th term in the sequence, and you can do that for whatever number. So if I asked you to find the 76th term, you would plug in 76 for n. So this is stuff that we've already done this week. The new thing that I'm going to add then is saying, with that same sequence, I'm going to tell you a number that I know is in the sequence. So I know that the number -14 would be a part of this sequence, but I want you to tell me what term number that is. So the question would be, find the term which has the value of -14. That just means I'm telling you -14 is in the sequence, but you have to tell me which term the -14 is in the list. So you can keep subtracting by 2. That could take a while. So what we're going to do is still use the equation, but it's kind of like working backwards. So if I give you the value of one of the terms, that just means that that is one of the terms. So in the equation, we are actually going to be this time plugging in an and then trying to solve for n. So it's like what we did with the same equation, but now we're kind of working backwards. So what that would look like is saying -14, which is what I'm trying to find, equals 10 minus 2 n minus 1, but now it's this n value that I'm trying to solve for. So again, every time we're solving, really that just means I need n by itself. So in order to do that, these two numbers, so 2 times the parentheses, because it's being multiplied, the first thing I have to do is subtract this number 10. So this is going to give me -24 equals -2 n minus 1. Then I have to divide by -2. which is 12. And I do still want n by itself, so the last thing I need to do is add the 1 over, and I would get that n equals 13. So as soon as I know, or when I can get n by itself, that means that the negative 14 I was asking for is the 13th term in the list or in the sequence. So it's very similar to what we have been doing already this week. The equation is the exact same, but now we're kind of working backwards when we're solving. Let's do one more example, and then you have your practice assignment to work on. For this example, the sequence is 60, 72, 84, 96, 108, and it keeps going. So again, what I'm going to start with is saying, what is the equation? So you should kind of be used to it by now. Starting off with, if the numbers are getting bigger, I know that where I'm adding something, but I need to know what that difference is. So it is going to be the same number every time. So for this sequence, we're adding 12. That just means that for the equation, it would be an equals 60 plus 12n minus 1. Then I'm going to ask you to find a specific term. So actually, let's try to change it up and say find the 70th term. That means we're plugging in n equals 70. So it would be a70 equals 60 plus 12, 70 minus 1. And then I'm following PEMDAS in order to calculate. And I get 888. So that means that is the 70th term in the list. But then the new thing that I want you to add is, let's say I know that 216 is a number in this list. So the question would be, find the term that has the value of 216. So that just means you're calculating which number in the list will be the 216. So that is our AN. And in the equation, we're trying to find or solve for n. So it is, I know that you know how to solve. You're trying to get n by itself. So the first step would be to subtract 60. This is going to be 156. And then divide by 12, which is 13. And the last step is add the 1 over. I know that that looks obvious, but in previous years, a lot of my students forgot that last step to add the 1, so please don't forget that. So if we get that n is 14, what that means is the 14th term is what I was looking for. That would be the number 216 that I was asking you to find. So now go to that practice assignment, work on those examples, and ask me if you have any questions.